The great hall of Nexus Prime was beautiful in a cold way. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Representatives from 40 different species sat in floating chairs arranged in a perfect circle. At the center stood President Yunahan, the leader of all humanity. Wearing a simple black suit among creatures dressed in gold and silver, she had come to ask for something her people had wanted for 300 years. Full membership in the Galactic Council. The right to be treated as equals. High Arbiter Velith looked down at her from his elevated seat. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that held no warmth. His species, the Varishi, had ruled the council for 2,000 years. They had seen many young races come and go. Humans were just another one. The council has reviewed humanity's petition, Velith said. His voice echoed through the hall. We find that humans remain too young, too aggressive, and too unpredictable for full membership status. The petition is denied. Yuna did not show her anger. She had learned long ago that showing emotion to these creatures only made things worse. With respect, High Arbiter, humanity has served this council faithfully for 3 centuries. Our soldiers have died protecting your borders. Our engineers keep your stations running. Our workers build your ships. We are grateful for your service, Velith replied. But service does not equal readiness. Perhaps in another century, humanity will mature enough to join us as equals. From the observation deck of the human embassy ship, Admiral Doyen Park watched through a screen. He was 60 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face marked by decades of war. He had fought in 11 campaigns for the Council. He had buried friends on worlds whose names he could not pronounce. And now, he watched as the galaxy told his people they were still not good enough. Sir, said Captain Jehokong, standing beside him. The Council is moving to the next matter. Doyon nodded slowly. He had expected this. They all had. But expecting pain did not make it hurt less. In the Great Hall, Velith raised his hand for silence. The Council will now address the matter of the Draken territorial dispute. The Draken Empire claims 3 systems currently occupied by human colonists. After careful consideration, Council has decided to transfer these systems to Draken control as a peacekeeping measure. Gwyneth felt her heart stop. Those systems hold 2 million human citizens. They will be given time to relocate, Velith said casually. The Drakon have agreed to a 6-month transition period. You are giving away human worlds without asking us? The Council does not require human permission to maintain galactic peace. Velith's tone was patient, like an adult, explaining something obvious to a child. The Drakon are full members. Their needs take priority. In the far corner of the hall, Warlord Thax of the Drakon Empire smiled. His people were massive creatures, scaled and strong, built for war. They had wanted those 3 systems for decades. The humans living there had resources the Drakon needed. Now those resources would be theirs, along with a workforce that had no choice but to serve. Yuna stood perfectly still. Around her, the representatives of 40 species watched with mild interest. Some looked bored. A few seemed amused. None spoke in humanity's defense. She remembered her grandmother's stories. How humanity had first met the galaxy 300 years ago. How they had been so excited to join a community of stars. How quickly that excitement had turned to bitter understanding. The galaxy did not see humans as partners. It saw them as useful tools. For 3 centuries, humanity had accepted this. They had told themselves that patience would be rewarded, that if they worked hard enough, served faithfully enough, they would eventually earn respect. That hope died in Yuna's heart as she stood in that beautiful cold hall. Hi, Arbiter, she said quietly. May I have a private word with you? Velith looked surprised but nodded. The other representatives would wait. A few minutes, with a disappointed human, was nothing. They met in a small chamber off the main hall. Velith looked down at Yuna with something close to pity. President Han, I understand your frustration. But you must accept reality. Humanity is simply not ready for. I am not here to argue, Yuna said. Her voice was calm. I am here to inform you that this was humanity's final petition. Velith blinked. I do not understand. For 300 years, we asked to be treated as equals. We were told to wait. We were told to prove ourselves. We were told that someday, if we were patient, we would be accepted. Una stepped closer. She was small compared to Velith, but in that moment, she seemed to fill the room. Today, you took our worlds without asking. You gave our people to the Draken like cattle. And you did it while telling us we are too primitive to have a voice. The Council acts for the good of all. The Council acts for itself. Una cut him off. And humanity has finally understood that we will never be part of that self. So we are leaving. Velith almost laughed. Leaving? Where would you go? Human space is surrounded by Council territory. Your economy depends on our trade networks. You have no allies, no resources, no hope of surviving alone. Una smiled. It was not a kind smile. Hi, Arbiter. You have spent 300 years thinking of us as servants, as workers, as soldiers you could spend in wars that did not matter to you. You never thought to wonder what we were doing when you were not watching? For the first time, something cold touched Velith's heart. What do you mean? I mean that humanity has been preparing for this day since we first understood what the Council truly was. Every engineer you thought was maintaining your stations was learning their weaknesses. Every soldier you thought was dying for your causes was training for different wars. Every worker you thought was building your ships was building ours. Velith stared at her. This is madness. Even if what you say is true, you cannot fight the entire galaxy. We do not intend to fight the entire galaxy, Una said. Only those foolish enough to come for us. She turned toward the door. Goodbye, High Arbiter. I doubt we will speak again. That night, every human in Council space disappeared. Ambassadors left their posts. Engineers walked away from critical systems. Soldiers vanished from their barracks. 2 million colonists on the 3 surrendered worlds were gone by morning, evacuated by ships that moved faster than anyone had believed humans capable of building. On a hidden station at the edge of known space, Dr. Mingy Choi received a message on her private channel. It contained only 2 words. Sunfall approved. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she began activating systems that had waited in darkness for 50 years. The galaxy did not yet know it. But the war had already begun. The first week after humanity's disappearance, the galaxy barely noticed. Humans were everywhere, doing jobs that nobody else wanted to do. Their absence was like a missing tooth. Uncomfortable, but not urgent. By the second week, things began to break. Jump gates that had worked perfectly for centuries suddenly failed. Human engineers had maintained those gates. Without them, the complex machines developed problems that alien technicians could not solve. They had never needed to learn how. The humans had always been there. Trade ships sat waiting at ports where human workers had loaded cargo. Station systems flickered and failed in places where human technicians had kept them running. Border outposts went dark as human soldiers abandoned their posts without warning. High Arbiter. Velith sent messages to Earth, polite at first, then demanding, then desperate. Every message went unanswered. Human space had gone completely silent. No ships came out. No signals escaped. It was as if an entire species had simply stopped existing. Ambassador, Kryn of the Valari, watched the growing chaos with quiet dread. Her species was small and weak, surviving in the Council by being useful to stronger races. She had always liked humans. They reminded her of her own people in some ways. Stubborn, proud, unwilling to accept that they were meant to be servants, she found. The ancient Silurian was the oldest living being in the Council, his body kept alive by machines while his mind remained sharp. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve and go extinct. If anyone understood what was happening, it was him. They are not running, Kryn said. The humans. They are not fleeing. They are preparing. Mornes turned his massive head toward her. His eyes, filmed with age but still bright with intelligence, studied her face. You understand this because your people once faced the same choice. Kryn nodded. 3,000 years ago, the Valeri had been conquered by the Council. They had chosen submission over extinction. They had survived, but something had broken inside their species. They had become servants who no longer remembered how to fight. The humans are different, she said. They chose to wait, but they never CHOs to submit. All these centuries, they were planning. Yes. Morny's accessed ancient records with a thought. Data flowed across screens around him. I have been reviewing their history. For 300 years, humans have been quietly moving resources to hidden locations, building ships in secret, developing weapons the Council banned them from having. They told us they were accepting our rules. They were lying. Can they win? Morny's was silent for a long moment. I do not know. But I know this. The Council has never faced an enemy that prepared for war while pretending to seek peace. We have grown comfortable, lazy. We have forgotten what it means to fight someone who truly wants to destroy us. Far away. In the darkness between stars, Captain Jiho Kong led his fleet on a mission that would never appear in any official record. The stealth carrier, Silent Thunder, moved like a ghost through space, invisible to every sensor the Council possessed. Behind it came 40 transport ships, each one filled with soldiers and equipment. Their destination was the 3 systems that the Council had given to the Drakon. 2 million humans lived there. The Draken were coming to claim them in 3 months. Jiho intended to make sure they found nothing but empty worlds. The evacuation had been planned for 20 years. Every colonist knew their role. When Jiho's ships arrived, the people were already packed. Families carried small bags containing only what they could not bear to leave behind. Children clutched toys and asked questions their parents could not answer. General Hyunwoo-beek commanded the ground forces that secured the evacuation. He was a large man with kind eyes and hands that had killed more enemies than he could count. He walked through the crowds, speaking softly to frighten people, helping elderly citizens board transports, carrying children who had lost their parents in the confusion. General, one of his officers reported, Drake and Scout ships have been detected at the edge of the system. They will arrive in 6 hours. Hyunwoo nodded. Then we have 5 hours to finish. Move faster. They made it with 30 minutes to spare. The last transport lifted off as Draken ships entered orbit. Warlord Thax himself had come to inspect his new territory. What he found was silence. The cities were empty. The factories were stripped of useful equipment. The farms had been burned. Even the roads had been destroyed, broken into rubble by carefully placed explosives. The humans had left nothing behind except a message written in giant letters across the capital. City's main plaza. You cannot own what we choose to destroy. Thax stood in his command center, staring at images of the devastation. His officers waited nervously for his reaction. The warlord was known for his violent temper. Men had died for bringing him smaller disappointments than this. But Thax did not rage. He simply stared at those words for a long time. Then he spoke quietly. Humans have always been strange creatures. They would rather burn their own homes than let enemies live in them. They would rather die than serve. What are your orders, warlord? Thax turned away from the screen. Tell the council that the systems they gave us are worthless. Then begin preparing my fleet for war. The humans think they can hide in their little corner of space. They are wrong. Back on Earth, Admiral Do-yeon Park stood in the command center of humanity's greatest secret. For 50 years, this facility had been hidden beneath the ocean, invisible to every council sensor. Inside it, thousands of engineers and scientists had worked on weapons that were never supposed to exist. Dr. Minji Choi walked beside him, explaining each system as they passed. She was young for her position, barely 40, but her mind was sharper than anyone Do-yeon had ever met. She had designed most of the weapons herself. Project Sunfall is ready, she said. The first generation can destroy any known ship design. The second generation, which will be ready in 6 months, can disable entire fleets. And the Council knows nothing about this? Minji smiled. The Council thinks humans are too primitive to develop new technology. They never bothered to check what we were doing with our own resources. Their arrogance is our greatest advantage. Do-yeon stopped at a window overlooking the main construction bay. Below him, warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen were being finished. Sleek and deadly, designed for one purpose: to make the Council understand that humanity would never be servants again.
How long before they attack us?
He asked. Months, perhaps. They will argue first, blame each other, make threats they do not mean. That is how the Council operates. Minji joined him at the window. But eventually they will come. Probably the Draken first. Thax has been wanting a war for decades. We will be ready. We have been ready for 50 years, Admiral. We were just waiting for permission to fight. Above them, past the ocean and the sky, the stars waited in silence. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was finally beginning to understand that something had changed. The servants had stopped serving. The workers had stopped working. The soldiers who had bled for other species' causes were now gathering for their own. War was coming. And for the first time in 300 years, humanity was looking forward to it. Warlord Thax stood on the bridge of his flagship, a crushing tide, and watched his fleet assemble. 800 warships. The largest Draken force ever gathered. Each vessel was massive, bristling with weapons, crewed by warriors who had trained their entire lives for battle. The Council had given him permission to launch a punitive expedition against humanity. Remind them of their place, High Arbiter Velith had said. Make them understand that they cannot simply leave. Thax intended to do much more than that. He intended to break humanity completely, to burn their worlds and enslave their survivors. To make an example so terrible that no species would ever again dream of defying the Council. His fleet jumped into human space at noon, Earth time. They expected chaos. They expected panic. They expected frightened primitives scrambling to defend themselves against impossible odds. What they found was Admiral Doyan Parks, united. Fleet waiting for them in perfect formation. Thax stared at his tactical display. Human ships filled the screen. Not the small, crude vessels he had expected, but warships that matched his own in size. Their hulls gleamed with technology he did not recognize. Their formations were precise, professional, the work of commanders who knew exactly what they were doing. Warlord, his sensor officer reported, voice shaking. We are detecting 347 human capital ships, plus approximately 1,000 support vessels. That is impossible, Thax leaned forward. Human shipyards cannot produce, sir. They are hailing us. A face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Doyen Park sat calmly in his command chair. Behind him, his bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. There was no fear in their eyes. If anything, they looked eager. Warlord Thax, Doyen said, you have entered human space without permission. You have exactly 60 seconds to turn your fleet around and leave. This is your only warning, Thax laughed. Even outnumbered, his warriors were the finest in the galaxy. His ships were proven in 100 campaigns. These humans were farmers and engineers playing at war. I will give you a counteroffer, Thax replied. Surrender now, and I will only enslave half your population. Resist, and I will kill every human I find. Doyan's expression did not change. Your 60 seconds are up. He cut the transmission. The battle began. Later, historians would study this engagement for centuries. They would analyze every decision, every maneuver, every moment. They would call it the Battle of the Red Line, named for the boundary of human space that had been crossed for the first. And last time, it lasted 11 minutes. The first volley came from the human fleet. Beams of energy unlike anything the galaxy had seen lanced across space. They did not simply damage Draken ships. They turned the ship's own hulls into weapons against them, channeling power through metal until reactors overloaded and engines exploded. Thax watched in horror as his proud fleet died around him. Ships that had conquered worlds vanished in flashes of light. Warriors who had never known defeat screamed as their vessels tore themselves apart. His tactical display, which had been filled with friendly signals, went dark, ship by ship. What is this? He whispered. What are they using? No one could answer him. No one had ever seen weapons like this. Dr. Mingi Choi's Project Sunfall, was performing exactly as designed, turning the enemy's strength into weakness, their size into vulnerability. Captain Jiho Kong led the Silent Thunder and its stealth squadron through the chaos. While the main fleet engaged the Dracan head-on, his ships slipped behind enemy lines. They targeted command vessels, communication ships, anything that helped coordinate the Dracan response. Enemy flagship identified, his tactical officer reported. The crushing tide. Warlord Thax is aboard. Do not destroy it, Jiho ordered. Disable engines and weapons. Admiral Park wants him alive. The Silent Thunder's weapons were precise, surgical. They cut through the crushing tide's defenses without triggering the reactor. When it was over, Thax's flagship drifted helplessly, a warrior unable to fight or flee. On the bridge of the crushing tide, Thax watched the last of his fleet die. Of 800 warships, less than 50 survived. Those that could still move were running, jumping away as fast as their damaged drives could carry them. The greatest Dracan force ever assembled had been destroyed in less time than it took to eat a meal. A human boarding ship attached to his hull. Thax drew his weapon and waited. He would die fighting. That was the Dracan way. But the humans did not come to kill him. They came with restraints and medical supplies. They treated wounded Dracan warriors. They offered water and food to prisoners. When they finally reached the bridge, their officer looked at Thax with something that might have been pity. Warlord Thax, the officer said, you are now a prisoner of the United Earth's government. You will be treated according to the laws of war. Do you have any wounded who need immediate medical attention? Thax could not understand. In Dracan culture, defeated enemies were killed or enslaved. Mercy was weakness. Why? He asked. Why not kill us? The officer shrugged. Because we are not you. They put Thax in a small cell aboard a human transport. He spent 3 days in silence, unable to process what had happened. When he finally spoke, it was to ask a guard a single question. Your captains, he said. During the battle, I saw their faces on the tactical display. They were smiling. Why were they smiling? The guard, a young woman with kind eyes and a rifle on her shoulder, thought about it for a moment. Because they have been waiting for this their entire lives. We all have. For 300 years, we were told we were not good enough. Too primitive, too weak, too young. She smiled herself. Now the galaxy knows the truth. The news of the battle spread faster than any ship could travel. Every species, on every world, heard about the day the Dracan's third fleet entered human space and did not come back. President Yunahan recorded a message that was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every language. She stood alone in a simple room, no flags or decorations behind her, just a window showing Earth floating in space. For 300 years, humanity asked for nothing but respect and fairness. We were denied. We no longer ask. The Galactic Council may continue to exist, but Earth and her children are no longer part of it. Any fleet that enters human space will not leave it. This is not a threat. This is a fact. We are done explaining ourselves. In her private quarters on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Kryn watched the message with tears running down her face. Not tears of fear, tears of recognition. Her ancestors had faced this same choice 3,000 years ago. They had chosen safety and submission. They had survived, but they had lost something important. Something that humanity had kept burning inside them all these centuries. They did it, she whispered to no one. They actually did it. Round her, the galaxy trembled. Species that had never given humans a second thought suddenly began reviewing their military capabilities. Leaders who had dismissed humanity as useful primitives started having quiet conversations about what this meant for the future. The servants had risen. The workers had become warriors, and the galaxy would never be the same. High Arbiter Velith stood before the full Galactic Council, his gray face tight with anger and fear. Behind him, images of destroyed Dracan warships floated on massive screens. The representatives of 40 species watched in silence. For the first time in anyone's memory, the council chamber felt cold. The humans have committed an act of war, Velith declared. They must be punished. I call upon every member species to contribute forces to a grand fleet. We will show these primitives that the galaxy will not be defied. The response was not what he expected. Elder Mornes, oldest of the Silurians, raised his ancient hand. When he spoke, his voice was slow but steady. I will address my parliament today, but I must tell you now what my recommendation will be. The Silurians will not participate in this war. Shock rippled through the chamber. The Silurians had been founding members of the council. Their withdrawal was unthinkable. Elder Mornes, Velith said carefully. Surely you understand what is at stake. I understand perfectly. Mornes turned to face the full assembly. I have lived for 10,000 years. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen species go extinct because they did not recognize danger when it approached. He gestured toward the images of destroyed ships. That fleet was the largest the Draken have ever assembled. It was destroyed in 11 minutes. Not ours. Not days. Minutes. Any species that attacks humanity now is not marching toward victory. It is marching toward extinction. He stood slowly, his ancient body supported by machines. The Silurians will take no part in this madness. Any who wish to join us in neutrality are welcome. Then he left the chamber. 3 other species followed him, but Velith was not finished. He spent weeks making deals, offering bribes, threatening consequences. Slowly, he assembled his grand fleet. 12 species contributed ships. 4,000 vessels gathered at the border of human space. The largest military force in galactic history, the Coalition Fleet, they called it. The instrument of the Council's will. Admiral Doyon Park watched their assembly from a distance. Human spy ships, invisible to Council sensors, reported every movement, every ship that arrived, every argument between Allied commanders, every weakness in their formation. They will attack within the month, Captain Jiho Kong reported. Our sources say Velith is pushing for immediate action before more species withdraw. Doyon nodded, and their supply lines. Extended, fragile. They are trying to coordinate 12 different species with 12 different logistical systems. It is chaos. Then let us make it worse. Jiho's stealth squadrons went to work. They appeared from nowhere, struck supply convoys, and vanished before any response could be organized. In the first week, they destroyed 40 cargo ships carrying food and fuel. In the second week, they disabled jump gate relays that the Coalition depended on for communication. The Grand Fleet began to starve. Ships that had arrived ready for war found themselves rationing power and water. Commanders argued about whose supplies should be shared. Old grudges between species surfaced. The Coalition had been built on fear of humanity. Now it was being torn apart by its own weaknesses, but it was. General Hyunwoo Beek who struck the killing blow. His target was not the fleet itself. It was the slave worlds behind it. For thousands of years, Council species had conquered and enslaved weaker races. Entire planets existed only to serve their masters. Billions of beings lived and died in chains. Hyunwoo's forces landed on these worlds not as conquerors, but as liberators. The first world was Kethra's, home to the Ven people. They had been slaves of the Vareshi for 800 years. When human soldiers appeared, the Ven did not know what to make of them. They had never seen warriors who did not come to hurt them. We are not here to rule you, Hyunwoo told their elders. We are here to free you. The choice of what to do with that freedom is yours. The soldiers broke the chains. They destroyed the slave pens. They taught the Ven how to use weapons and defend themselves. Then they moved on to the next world. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans fight for freedom, not just their own. Species that had supported the Coalition began to waver. How could they fight alongside slavers? How could they oppose the only power in the galaxy that was actually freeing the oppressed? Dr. Mingi Choi unveiled her final creation at the perfect moment. She called it the Silence Field, a device that could disable jump drives across an entire star system. Any ship caught inside when it activated would be trapped, unable to retreat, unable to call for help. The Coalition fleet moved into human space with 4,000 ships. They expected a battle. What they found was Admiral Park's fleet waiting at a distance. Not attacking, not retreating, just waiting. Velith, who had taken personal command of the Coalition, ordered his ships forward. "They are afraid," he announced. "Press the attack. Destroy them." The Coalition moved deeper into the system. That was when the silence field activated. Every jump drive in the Coalition fleet died at once. Warning lights flashed across 4,000 bridges. Navigators reported that faster-than-light travel was impossible. They were trapped. Admiral Park opened communications. His face appeared on every screen in the Coalition fleet. High Arbiter Veloth. "Commanders of the Coalition, you have entered human space with weapons raised. You came to destroy us, to enslave us, to remind us of our place?" Doyan's voice was calm, almost gentle. "You failed. You cannot destroy 4,000 ships," Velith replied, but his voice shook. "I do not intend to." Doyan leaned forward. "I intend to offer you a choice. Go home. Tell your leaders what you have seen. Tell them that any who wish for peace will find humanity a generous friend. Tell them that any who wish for war will find us a patient and thorough enemy." He paused. "Choose." The Coalition did not choose as one. It shattered instead. Ships began breaking formation, moving away from each other. Species that had been forced into alliance remembered that they had no real reason to die for Velith's pride. Jump drives came back online as the silence field was deactivated, and vessels fled in every direction. Within hours, the Grand Fleet was gone. 4,000 ships scattered across the galaxy, carrying stories of human weapons and human mercy. But not everyone ran. Warlord Thax had been released from human custody 2 months earlier. He had gathered the remnants of the Dracon military. Those who still believed in the old ways, those who could not accept defeat. While the Coalition scattered, he pushed forward. "The humans showed me mercy," he announced to his warriors. "That was their mistake. Mercy is weakness. We will show them how real warriors fight." His fleet of 300 ships charged directly at Earth. Admiral Park did not give a speech this time. He simply gave orders. The battle lasted 6 minutes. There were no survivors. No prisoners, no mercy. When it was over, Thax's fleet was nothing but expanding clouds of debris. Dr. Minji Choi watched the aftermath from her station. "He thought our mercy meant we could not be ruthless," she said quietly. Admiral Park nodded. "We offered peace. He chose war. The choice was always his." Around them, human space fell silent. The war, it seemed, was over. But everyone knew that what came next would be even harder than what had come before. Peace, after all, is more difficult than victory. 1 year had passed since the Coalition fleet scattered like leaves in a storm. The galaxy was different now. Quieter in some ways, busier in others. The old order had cracked, and something new was growing in its place. High Arbiter Velith was gone. His own people had removed him from power 3 months after his defeat. They blamed him for the humiliation, for the losses, for leading them into a war they could not win. He lived now in a small house on a minor world, forgotten by everyone who had once feared him. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. Half its members had withdrawn. The rest argued constantly about what to do next. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Now they could not even agree on simple trade agreements. In contrast, the Human Alliance grew stronger every day. President Yuna Han stood at the podium of the Alliance's first formal assembly. Behind her sat representatives from Earth and its 17 colony worlds. Before her sat something that would have been impossible a year ago. Ambassadors from 17 different alien species who had chosen to join humanity rather than oppose it. Ambassador Kryn of the Valari sat in the front row. The first non-human member of the Alliance Council. Her people had been the first to petition for membership. "We spent 3,000 years as servants," she had told President Han during their private meeting. "We forgot who we were. Your example reminded us." Other species had followed. Some were former slaves, freed by General Hunwoo Beek's liberation campaigns. Some were small races who had always lived in fear of their larger neighbors. Some were simply tired of the Council's corruption and cruelty. Today marks a new beginning, President Han announced to the Assembly, not just for humanity, but for every species that believes in freedom, fairness, and mutual respect. The old powers told us that strength meant domination, that the strong must rule the weak, that some beings are meant to serve while others are meant to command. She paused, looking out at the diverse faces before her. We reject that belief. Strength does not mean cruelty. Power does not require oppression. We can be mighty and merciful. We can be powerful and just. Admiral Doyon Park watched from the back of the hall. He had refused a seat of honor. He had refused the medals and titles that others wanted to give him. A month after Thax's final attack, he had submitted his resignation. The war is over. He had told President Han, "I am a warrior. You need builders now, not fighters." She had accepted his resignation with sadness, but understanding. He was 61 years old. He had spent his entire life preparing for a war that had lasted less than a month. Now that it was over, he was not sure what to do with himself. Captain Jiho Kong found him after the ceremony. "Admiral, I wanted to tell you personally. I have been given command of the new Alliance exploration fleet." Doyon smiled. "Exploration. That is good. Better than more war. We'll be going beyond known space. Looking for new worlds, new species, maybe even new friends." Jiho hesitated. "You could come with us. We could use someone with your experience." But Doyon shook his head. "My time has passed. This is your generation's work now. Go, find what is out there. Try not to start any wars." Jiho laughed. "I will do my best," he saluted. A gesture from the old military that felt strange now but right. Then he was gone, walking toward a future that Doyon would never see. Dr. Mingi Choi did not attend the ceremony. She was busy with different work. In the same hidden facility where she had developed the weapons that won the war, she was now dismantling them. Project Sunfall is too dangerous to exist, she had argued to the Alliance Council. We won because our enemies did not know what we could do. Now, everyone knows. If these weapons spread, if other species learn to make them, the next war will destroy everything. Better to lock them away and hope they are never needed again, the Council had agreed. One by one, the terrible machines were deactivated. Their secrets sealed in vaults that only a handful of people knew existed. General Henwu Beek had refused to stop working. While others celebrated, he continued his missions to worlds where beings still lived in chains. The war might be over, but slavery was not yet extinct. On the planet Voss, he stood before a crowd of newly freed slaves. They were small creatures, barely reaching his waist, with large eyes that had never seen freedom before this day. "What do we do now?" their leader asked him. "We have never lived without masters." Yunwal knelt so he could look the small being in the eyes. "You learn. You make mistakes. You try again. That is what freedom means? It is not easy, but it is worth it." He stood and gestured to the human soldiers around him. "We will help you start. We will teach you what we know, but the life you build will be your own." On Nexus Prime, Elder Mornes received a visitor. President Yunahan had come to thank him personally for his decision not to join the war against humanity. "I did not do it for you," Morny said honestly. "I did it because I could see what was coming. Fighting you would have been suicide. I know." Una sat across from him in his dimly lit chambers. "But you could have joined anyway. Pride makes beings do foolish things." Pride. Morny's made a sound that might have been laughter. "I abandoned pride 10,000 years ago. It is too expensive." He studied her with his ancient eyes. "You know, in all my years, I have seen many species rise. Most of them were destroyed by their own arrogance. They won their first victory and thought they were invincible. They expanded too fast, made too many enemies. Eventually they fell." "Is that a warning?" "It is an observation." Mornes leaned forward. "Humanity has done something I have never seen before. You won your war without becoming the monsters you were fighting. You offered mercy to those who attacked you. You freed slaves instead of taking them for yourself. You built an alliance instead of an empire. He paused. I do not know if it will last. Nothing lasts forever, but I believe you may yet outlive us all. President Han thought about his words for a long time after she left. The story ends on the observation deck of Earth's largest orbital station. Nova's light. President Han stood at the window, watching ships move in peaceful patterns below, freighters from a dozen worlds, passenger vessels carrying tourists and diplomats. Alliance patrol craft keeping the peace behind her. A door opened. She did not turn around. The Silurians have formally requested Alliance membership, her aide reported. Elder Mornes is personally sponsoring their application. Una smiled. Good. Accepted. There is also a message from Captain Kong. The exploration fleet has discovered 17 new systems. 3 of them have intelligent life. First contact protocols are being prepared. Tell Jiho to be careful. We have enough friends. We do not need more enemies. The aide left. Una was alone with the stars. She thought of everyone who had brought them to this moment. Admiral Park, who had spent his life preparing for a war he won in minutes. Dr. Choi, who had created terrible weapons and then locked them away. General Beak, who freed the enslaved and asked for nothing in return. Captain Kang, now sailing into unknown space looking for wonders. She thought of all the humans who had died over 300 years of patience and planning. All the people who had worked in secret, building the foundations of freedom, knowing they would never see the results. We did it, she whispered to their ghosts. We are not servants anymore. We are not primitives. We are equals. Below her, Earth glowed blue and green, beautiful and alive. Around her, ships from a dozen species moved in peaceful cooperation. Beyond her, the galaxy stretched on forever, full of mysteries yet to be discovered. The war was over. But humanity's story was just beginning. We are not done, Una said to the stars. We are just getting started. And somewhere in the depths of space, the universe listened.